There are moments in life when the silence feels heavier than the noise, moments when you sit alone with your thoughts and wonder how everything slipped through your hands. You remember what you once had, the opportunities, the relationships, the peace in your heart, the dreams that once burned brightly in your soul. And now you look around and it feels like something has been taken from you. Something valuable, something meaningful, something that mattered deeply. But listen carefully, because this message is not a coincidence. If these words have found you in this exact moment of your life, then there is a reason. There is a divine reason. And that reason is this: God is about to restore what you've lost. Right now you may feel tired, you may feel disappointed, you may feel as if the road has been unfair, as if the weight you have been carrying is heavier than what others seem to carry. Maybe you prayed and the answer did not come when you expected it. Maybe you trusted someone and maybe you worked hard and the results never arrived. Maybe you lost something that felt irreplaceable. But hear this clearly in the deepest part of your heart: nothing that passes through your life escapes the knowledge of God. Nothing that breaks your heart goes unnoticed by God. Nothing that was taken from you is beyond the power of God to restore. There are seasons in life that feel like winter. Seasons where everything appears silent, barren, and lifeless. During those moments you might think the story is over. You might believe that what was lost is gone forever. But what many people fail to understand is that God often works in silence before the greatest restoration begins. While you were grieving, God was preparing. While you were questioning, God was arranging. While you felt forgotten, God was designing a future that is greater than what you can currently see. You see, loss has a way of shaking the foundation of our faith. It tests the strength of it challenges our belief in what is possible. When something precious disappears from your life, the human mind immediately begins to create a story of defeat. It whispers that the opportunity is gone. It whispers that time has run out. It whispers that you will never recover what was taken from you. But those whispers are not the truth. The truth is that God is not limited by what you lost yesterday. God is not restricted by the doors that closed last year. God is not constrained by the failures or disappointments that seem to define your past. God has the power to restore in ways that no human plan could ever accomplish. Think about that for a moment. Restoration is not simply about returning something to the way it was before. True restoration, the kind that comes from God, often returns something better, stronger, and more meaningful than it was originally. Sometimes what you lost had to leave your life so that something greater could take its place. Sometimes to happen so the rebuilding could begin. Sometimes the delay was necessary because the timing of God operates far beyond the limited vision of human understanding. There are people listening to these words right now who feel like they have been living in a season of loss for far too long. You lost confidence. You lost opportunities that once seemed certain. You lost relationships that once felt unbreakable. And perhaps the most painful loss of all was the feeling that life was moving forward while you were left standing still. But today I want you to understand something powerful. Your story is not finished. The chapter you are currently living is not the final chapter. God is writing a restoration story for your life. Even in the moments when you thought everything was falling apart, God was still present. Even when your prayers felt unanswered, God was still listening. Even when you thought the door was permanently closed, God was preparing another trance that you could not yet see. Because the truth is this: when God decides to restore, no obstacle can prevent it. No human opinion can cancel it. No delay can destroy it. What you must understand is that loss is often a preparation ground. It is the place where patience grows. It is the place where strength is forged. It is the place where faith is purified. When everything is going well, it is easy to feel confident. It is easy to believe that you are in control. But when something happens, valuable disappears. That is when the soul begins to search deeper. That is when the heart begins to call upon God with a sincerity that did not exist before. And God hears that call. God hears every quiet prayer you whispered when nobody else was around. God hears the questions you asked late at night when the world was asleep and you are alone with your thoughts. God sees the tears that no one else noticed. God understands the weight that you have been carrying silently. And this is why, not because everything has been easy, not because you never struggled, not because you never doubted, but because you continued moving forward even when it was difficult. Because somewhere inside you, despite the pain, there was still a small spark of faith that refused to die. God responds to that spark. Sometimes restoration arrives slowly, like the sunrise after a long night. At first, the light is faint. You barely notice the change, but gradually the darkness begins to retreat, and suddenly you realize that the new day has arrived. Other times, restoration arrives suddenly, like a door that opens unexpectedly after you believed it was permanently sealed. Opportunities return, strength returns, peace returns, direction returns, and when that moment comes, you will look back and realize that the waiting was not wasted. The patience was not meaningless. The struggle was not pointless. Every step of the journey was shaping you into someone stronger than you were before. But here is something important you must understand. Restoration often requires trust before the evidence appears. Faith means believing that God is working even when your eyes cannot see the progress. It means waking up each day with the conviction that your current situation does not define your final outcome. Because God is never finished with a life that still has purpose. There are dreams inside you that have not expired. There are opportunities ahead of you that have not yet revealed themselves. There are blessings that have your name written on them that are simply waiting for the perfect moment to arrive. You may feel like you are behind in life. You may feel like others have moved ahead while you remain stuck in place. But God does not measure your life according to human timelines. What appears delayed in human understanding may actually be perfectly aligned in the plan of God. And when the moment of restoration arrives, it will not feel late. It will feel right. You will begin to see doors opening where there were once walls. You will notice strength returning to places in your heart that once felt broken. You will feel a renewed sense of purpose rising within you. The peace you thought you lost will return. The confidence you thought disappeared will rise again. The opportunities you believed were gone will begin to appear in unexpected ways. And when that restoration begins, you will understand something powerful. God did not abandon you to your hardest moments. God was guiding you through them. There is a transformation that happens in a person who has walked through loss and still chooses to trust God. That person develops a resilience that cannot be easily shaken. They develop a wisdom that cannot be easily taught. They develop a faith that becomes stronger than fear. And that is who you are becoming. Right now, you may still be standing in the middle of the process. You may still feel the echoes of what was lost. Not mistake the middle of the journey for the end of the story. God is still writing. God is still preparing. God is still restoring. The day will come when you look back at this season of your life and realize that what felt like an ending was actually the beginning of something far greater than you could have imagined. And when that day arrives, you will stand with a heart full of gratitude, knowing that God truly restores what was lost. Hear me clearly, what you have endured, the nights of the moments of despair, the heartbreaks that shook your spirit, none of it was wasted. Every trial, every loss, every tear has a purpose greater than your understanding. God does not allow loss without intention. God does not permit destruction without a plan for renewal. Even when it felt like the world had turned its back on you, God was silently working behind the scenes, orchestrating a restoration so profound that it will surpass anything you have imagined. What seems like the of your story is merely the preparation for a testimony that will inspire generations. You must understand that the restoration God brings is not simply a replacement. It is not a mere return to what was. It is an elevation, a magnification, a rebirth of blessings you never thought possible. God is about to pour into your life more than you once held, more than you once lost, more than you dared to dream. The very things that were stolen, broken, or delayed will return to you, multiplied and refined, infused with the strength and beauty that only God can give. When restoration comes, it will not just heal the gaps in your life, it will transform your very destiny. It will awaken a power in you that has been quietly growing through the pain. Consider the power of patience and trust. There is a divine rhythm to the timing of God. What you perceive as delay is often the perfect moment for restoration. God sees the end from the beginning. God knows the right season for your blessings too. What seems impossible to your eyes, what seems out of reach to your hands, is already perfectly aligned in the plan of God. The doors you thought were closed, the opportunities you believed were gone, the dreams that felt unreachable, they are not lost. They are being carefully prepared to return to you at the exact moment when your heart, your spirit, and your purpose are ready to receive them fully. Do not be afraid of the scars that remain from what was lost. Those scars are not signs. Failure! They are proof that you endured when others may have faltered, that you held on when hope seemed distant, that you remained faithful even when faith itself felt tested. Uses your perseverance, your faithfulness, and your resilience to build a foundation for the restoration that is coming. What you endured has fortified your spirit, sharpened your understanding, and deepened your connection to God. Courage display all instruments God is using to rebuild your life with unmatched power. Listen closely, restoration is not always immediate, but it is inevitable for those who trust in God. Do not measure your life by human timelines. Do not despair when the world does not see your progress. Do not compare your journey to the paths of others. God's restoration operates on a level beyond human understanding. It defies logic, surpasses expectation, and transforms impossibilities into undeniable realities. The blessings that are yours will arrive, and when they do, they will arrive in a way that reminds you of the infinite wisdom and infinite mercy of God, and let this truth settle deep into your heart. God's restoration is always purposeful. Nothing is returned to you merely for comfort. Every restored blessing carries a mission, a calling, and a reason that extends far beyond your personal gain. When God restores what was lost, it is not only for you, it is for the impact to have, for the lives you are meant to touch, for the legacy you are chosen to leave behind. Restoration is the confirmation that God's plan is perfect, that God's power is unmatched, and that God's attention to your life is absolute. So rise with faith, rise with courage, rise with unshakable confidence. Walk forward with the certainty that God is actively working on your behalf, that the losses of yesterday are the groundwork for the victories of tomorrow, and that every prayer, every moment of trust, every act of faith is being multiplied into a restoration beyond measure. God is not just returning what you lost, God is preparing to reveal a level of blessing, power, and purpose that will leave you in awe. This is your moment. This is your time. The God who sees all, knows all, and controls all is about to restore what you've lost. Open your heart. Strengthen your spirit. Prepare your life to receive the abundance, peace, joy, and fulfillment that God has already ordained for you. Stand firm in faith, because the day of restoration is closer than you think, and when it arrives, it will be undeniable, unstoppable, and undeniably divine. Your restoration is coming not as a whisper, not as a shadow, but as a mighty declaration of God's power. And when it comes, your life will shine as evidence that nothing entrusted to the care of God is ever truly lost. It will shine as proof that God's plans are higher, God's wisdom is greater, and God's love is less. Listen now with a heart that is ready to receive truth beyond emotion, beyond fear, and beyond the limitations of what your eyes currently see. There are seasons in life when silence itself is a message from God. When you prayed and felt no immediate response, it was not abandonment. It was divine preparation. God does not ignore sincere hearts. God does not forget those who continue to believe, even when circumstances speak against them. The quiet moments you experienced were not empty spaces. They were sacred spaces where your character was being refined and your destiny was being secured in the wisdom of God. Understand this deeply. What was taken from you did not surprise God. The loss you experienced was never beyond the awareness of God's knowledge. Before the moment of loss ever occurred, God already knew the path your life would take. And because God sees beyond time itself, restoration is not something that must be negotiated. Restoration is something that has already been designed for your life. It is waiting for the appointed moment when your faith reaches the level where you are ready to carry the blessing without losing your spiritual foundation. There are people who desire restoration but are not prepared to receive it, because sometimes the very thing you lost carried a lesson that was necessary before greater blessing could be released. God shapes hearts before releasing abundance. God strengthens spirits before expanding responsibility. God builds neurons before granting elevation. If restoration came too early, you might not have possessed the maturity required to sustain it. But God knows the exact point where your faith becomes strong enough to carry what is coming next. You must release the fear that whispers that your best days are behind you. That thought is not inspired by truth. It is a distortion meant to discourage your spirit. Your future is not shrinking, it is expanding under the guidance of God. Your opportunities are not disappearing, they are being repositioned according to the perfect wisdom of God. What looks like a closed chapter is actually the beginning of a deeper narrative written by the hand of God. Consider the nature of divine restoration. When God restores, God does not simply return material or emotional loss. God restores dignity, confidence, vision, and spiritual clarity. Sometimes what you lost was not the object itself, but the sense of purpose connected to it. God is able to restore even the on forever. God can restore your courage when fear tried to dominate your thoughts. God can restore your peace when anxiety attempted to rule your mind. God can restore your direction when confusion tried to bury your calling. There is a hidden power inside those who walk through loss while maintaining faith in God. The world may underestimate such a person, but God does not measure worth by external appearance or temporary success. God measures the heart. Continues to trust God in the middle of hardship carries a spiritual strength that cannot be defeated by circumstances. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are not standing outside the reach of divine mercy. God is attentive to every detail of your life. When you wake up in the morning, God already knows the battles you will face. When you walk through uncertainty, God is already preparing guidance for your steps. When your heart feels weak, God is already strengthening you from within. There will come a moment when restoration begins to manifest in ways that surprise even you. You may receive opportunities you did not chase. You may encounter doors that open without your struggle. You may experience favor in places where you once faced rejection. Because when God decides to restore, favor often becomes the language through which restoration is delivered. Do not underestimate the power of divine favor. Favor is when God positions people, events, circumstances to work in your direction without you forcing the outcome. Favor is when what should have worked against you suddenly begins to support your journey. Favor is when your life becomes aligned with the purpose God has ordained for you. The restoration God is preparing for you may arrive in unexpected forms. It may come as a renewed opportunity, a healed relationship, a financial breakthrough, a spiritual awakening, or a return of lost peace. But always remember that God's restoration is never limited by human expectations. Sometimes the greatest restoration is not the return of what was lost, but the creation of something greater that replaces it. You must walk forward with the confidence that your life is still under the protection of God. Even when you cannot see the full picture, trust that every step you take is observed by God. Even when doubt tries to speak louder than faith, choose to listen to the still voice of truth within your spirit. Faith is not a of struggle. Faith is the decision to trust God despite the presence of struggle. The enemy of your peace wants you to believe that your loss defines your destiny, but destiny is not determined by temporary defeat. Destiny is determined by the purpose God placed inside your life before you are fully aware of it. What God has ordained cannot be erased by human failure, by rejection, or by seasons of difficulty. Remember this, sometimes God removes something from your life because it knows longer serves the future God is preparing for you. And though the removal may hurt, the protection hidden inside that removal is greater than the comfort of what was taken. Many people cannot see the protection of God until time reveals the wisdom behind what happened. Do not rush the restoration process. Do not force doors open that God has closed. Do not walk toward opportunities that require you to compromise your faith, your integrity, or your spiritual peace. True restoration will never destruction of your character. True restoration will always elevate your spirit while preserving your connection to God. Your life is moving toward a season where what once caused pain will become a testimony of victory. People who once doubted your journey will witness the evidence of God's work in your life, and when they see it, they will not be able to deny that God is real and that God restores those who remain faithful. Stand in expectation, not in anxiety. Live in hope, not in fear. Walk in assurance that the restoration of God is not delayed by human opinion. What God has promised is secured by divine authority. And when the appointed moment arrives, it will feel like the breaking of dawn after a long night. So carry this message in your heart. God is about to restore what you have lost. Not because you are perfect, not because you never struggled, but because God is merciful, powerful, and faithful to those who continue to trust in divine wisdom. Your story is not in loss. Your story is entering a chapter of restoration that will reveal the greatness of God working silently and mightily in your life. There is a deeper truth you must embrace as you continue walking this path of faith. The restoration coming from God is not always announced with noise. Sometimes God begins restoration in the unseen places of your life before any visible change appears. People may not notice it at first. Even you may not immediately recognize it, but inside your shift, all fears will weaken. Doubt will lose its authority. Strength will quietly return to your heart like a wind that moves through a desert long before the rain is visible on the horizon. That is how God works when preparing a life for restoration that carries eternal purpose rather than temporary comfort. You must stop measuring your future using the memory of your past pain. Your past was a teacher, not a prison sentence. God allowed experiences in your life to destroy you, but to shape the version of you that is capable of receiving the blessings coming ahead. Many people want restoration without transformation, but God's restoration always carries transformation inside it. When God restores, you will not remain the same person who experienced the loss. You will become wiser, stronger, more spiritually aware, and more grounded in your trust toward God. There will be moments when your faith is tested even after hearing this message. Do not be surprised if challenges still appear after you receive hope in your heart. Faith is not proven during comfortable seasons. Faith is proven when uncertainty still walks beside you, but you continue moving forward with confidence in God. The strongest faith is not the faith that never encounters doubt. The strongest faith is the faith that refuses to surrender to doubt even when doubt speaks loudly. God is preparing opportunities that are aligned with your true calling, not opportunities that only temporary desires. Many people chase success without understanding purpose, but the restoration God brings will be connected to destiny. It will carry meaning that extends beyond material gain. It will position your life in places where your existence itself becomes a blessing to others. Because when God restores, God also appoints your life to become a channel of goodness, wisdom, and hope for people who are still walking through their own valleys of loss. Listen carefully to this. Truth, your value has never been determined by what you lost. Your value is determined by the fact that God created you with intention and placed purpose inside your existence. The world may judge you by circumstances, but God measures you by the sincerity of your heart and the perseverance of your spirit. There is a dignity placed inside your life by God that cannot be erased by rejection, failure, or misunderstanding. There is coming a season where you will witness the unfolding of events that will make you realize that God was guiding your steps even when you thought you were walking alone. You may look back one day and see that the doors you were disappointed about closing were actually protecting you from paths that would have weakened your spirit. You will understand that the detours in your life were not punishment but divine direction from God's infinite wisdom. Do not lose your faith when progress seems slow. Growth often happens beneath the surface before it appears outwardly. Like a seed buried in soil, the beginning of new life is often hidden from human sight. But inside that darkness, something is breaking open, something is preparing to rise. That is how God builds destinies that cannot be destroyed by time. There is power in continuing to worship God even when your situation has not changed yet. There is spiritual authority released when a heart chooses gratitude while still waiting for restoration. Because gratitude is a declaration that you trust God more than your present circumstances. When you thank God in the middle of uncertainty, you are announcing that your faith is stronger than your fear. You are entering a time where unexpected goodness will follow your steps. You may receive help from places you did not anticipate. You may encounter people who will support your journey without knowing why they feel compelled to assist you. That is the movement of God working through human lives, aligning events according to divine wisdom. The restoration. God is preparing may also bring healing to emotional wounds that you thought would remain forever. There are hurts that you carried quietly because you believed they were part of your identity. But God is able to touch the deepest layers of your heart and release you from pain that you once believed was permanent. When God heals, the heart becomes free to hope again, to trust again, and to dream again. Never allow fear to convince you that your opportunity for greatness has passed. The timing of God is not restricted by age, by social position, or by human judgment. God can elevate a life in a moment that transforms years of struggle into a testimony of victory. What matters is not how long you waited, but whether your heart remained connected to God during the waiting. The restoration coming to your life will carry a testimony that will silence doubt and strengthen faith in others. People will see your life and understand that endurance in faith is never wasted. They will witness that. rewards those who remain steadfast even when circumstances attempt to break their spirit. So prepare your heart for the work of God in your life. Stand firm in belief that restoration is not a distant possibility, but a living promise moving toward you. Walk in peace knowing that God's authority governs your future. And remember always that nothing placed under the care of God is ever permanently lost. God is about to restore what you have lost. And when that restoration unfolds, your life will stand as a living witness that God's mercy is greater than human failure, that God's wisdom is higher than human understanding, and that God's power is greater than every force that once tried to hold your destiny in darkness. As this message reaches the deepest place inside your heart, carry this final truth with unwavering confidence. Your life is held in the hands of God, and nothing entrusted to God is ever beyond restoration. The journey you walked, the tears you shed, the disappointments you carried, and the faith you preserved were never meaningless before God. You are standing on the threshold of a season where restoration will begin speaking louder than your pain. Do not surrender to fear. Do not surrender to doubt. And do not allow your past to dictate the language of your future. God is moving in ways you may not yet perceive, preparing blessings that will arrive at the exact moment ordained by divine wisdom. Remember always that your story is still under the authority of God's purpose. What was lost will not remain lost if it is part of the destiny God has chosen for your life. Walk forward with peace in your heart, strength in your spirit, and unshakable trust that God is working even in silence. The restoration promised to your life is not dependent on human power, but on the eternal will of God. So lift your head with dignity, carry hope in your soul, and continue believing with certainty that God is about to restore what you. When it happens, your life will shine as living evidence of God's mercy, power, and everlasting faithfulness.